Okay, class, this is the second video on diction and syntax. Yesterday we covered the idea of word choice and the choice of how the words are being structured for the author to have the meaning of the sentence. Now we're going to cover the idea of syntax and the word order and how that affects the meaning. We are breaking this video up, or this series up, into 2 days because of the fact that these are more complex topics. And so the first ones we're going to focus on is this idea of anaphora. I suggest when you're taking notes on this that you not only write down the word and my examples that I'm giving you, but that you write down the definitions as well, because it kind of plants it more in your head and makes it more real in that sense. So the idea of anaphora is a repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning of successive phrases, clauses, or lines. The important aspect here is the idea that it's successive and it's always the beginning. So these have to go right at the beginning of a phrase and it keeps going in a row until it's over. So looking at this idea here, she didn't speak, she didn't stand, she didn't even look up when she came in. The idea that at the beginning of each of these sentences, yes, there are periods here, but because these are beginnings and these are successive, it counts as anaphora. So the she didn't would be underlined and labeled as an anaphora. It's important that writing down these examples, you get used to underlining the parts that are repeating so that you can visualize it in your head, because on the test or in the quiz when you go to look at these, I'm not going to tell you to underline the phrases that are repeated, but if you do underline them, it helps you to get a sense of what it is more, because these structures are similar, but their placement matters. So an anaphora is the beginning of successive phrases. The next one we have is antistrophe, which is also noted as an epistrophe. I'm going to call it antistrophe and everything, but I'm giving you the epistrophe because sometimes on the AP test they will slip and call it an epistrophe even though they are the same exact thing. So I'm just prepping you now for that. So an antistrophe is the opposite of an anaphora. So it's the repetition of a word or phrase at the ending of successive phrases, clauses, or lines. So unlike anaphora, which has it at the beginning phrases, antistrophe has it at the end. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, and the quote continues. But we're looking for repetition. So first of all, we're going to reread the sentence and we're going to underline everything that repeats. And then looking here for the punctuation marks. The repeating word child repeats just before the punctuation mark, not after the punctuation mark. So this is the end of the phrases. So each of these phrases or clauses are signaled by the end punctuation, and then it goes to another one. Then you have another punctuation, then it goes to another one. Okay, even though you see eyes here also, this sentence itself would have an example of anaphora and of antistrophe, but I'm specifically focusing on the child aspects. Sentences can have more than one, and in this case this one does, but I'm specifically for this video focusing on the antistrophe. Okay, the next type we have is an asyndeton. An asyndeton is the omission of conjunctions between phrases, clauses, or words. Omission meaning the idea that it's left out. So this sounds like it's grammatically incorrect because the sentence, you're so used to having the word and there when we're looking at phrases and clauses within sentences itself. So conjunctions in general, just keeping in mind these 7 conjunctions, these are called coordinating conjunctions, and the acronym to use to remember them is fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. So the idea that each one starts with a letter of fanboys. Fanboys is going to continue to come up throughout the year, and the idea of and how the structures are used to help the sentence hold together. And this is part of what the coordinating conjunctions do. Now, in a sentence that uses asyndeton, it doesn't have those conjunctions. So you're looking at it in a weird way. We went to the store to buy pens, paper, notebooks. Usually here in between the paper and the notebooks, you would see the word and, but you don't see it. And since you don't see it, it is an example of asyndeton. Okay, asyndeton, remember, it sounds grammatically incorrect, but I promise you it's not grammatically incorrect. It's just the note that the author chose on their word order. They chose to leave out the conjunction or to omit the conjunction. Okay, the last one we have is polysyndeton, which is the opposite of asyndeton. So it's the use of conjunctions in between each phrase, clause, or set of words. This is every single one. It's not just one of them, but it's all of them. So we went to the store to buy pens and papers and notebooks. So that idea that it happens with everyone. This one sounds a little ingrammatically correct too, because it's weird to say and over and over in the same sentence. But again, the author is making that choice of their words and their word order to emphasize something. Okay, so asyndeton uses no conjunction, polysyndeton uses all, or uses conjunctions, but it has to be with every single one. If the sentence was written, we went to the store to buy pens, papers, and notebooks, and only had one and, it's a normal sentence. It's not an asyndeton, it's not a polysyndeton. It either has to have none or it has to have all. Okay, so that's the first four that we're going to cover. The next one we're going to cover is chiasmus. I know it has a CH, but it's still pronounced chiasmus. Now, again, another one, and why this is in parentheses, is the antimetabole, is because, again, sometimes on the AP test, they will call it the opposite. This is the more commonly known one, and they have tried in the last previous years to go with the chiasmus instead of the antimetabole, because they're trying to go with the more commonly used words, not necessarily the arcane words. Now, chiasmus is a repetition of words in reverse order. I like to think of this as the idea of a math problem. So if we're looking at this, let me switch back to my pointer. If we're looking at this, A plus B equals B plus A. This is a math problem. It's the reverse property in math. So the idea is, if we apply this to a sentence itself, don't sweat the petty things and don't pet the sweaty things. The words are already emphasized here. So sweat would be the A, petty would be the B, pet would be the B, and sweaty would be the A. The idea is that at the beginning of the sentence they show up in one order, and at the end of the sentence they show up in the opposite order. Okay, so sweat, petty, pet, sweaty. And the idea that they change the ending doesn't matter. It's the idea that the whole word meaning itself is there. Now this other graphic, readers don't need to write, but writers do need to read. If we look at this here, we have the A, and then we have the B, and this equals, and that's where the conjunction comes into play, a B plus an A. So we have that idea of readers and read, and we have those idea of write and writers. Again, they're changing the words a little bit, as in the endings of the word, but it's still the same idea of the reverse property there. Okay? Now, looking at this next one, I want you to write these in your notes, and I want you to try and figure out what they are. Are they anaphora, antistrophe, asyndeton, polysyndeton, chiasmus? When you're writing them in your notes, practice the underlines. Practice the idea of the successive phrases or the lack of conjunctions. Also, these can be more than one. Okay, so write these in your notes and be prepared to discuss them in class tomorrow, because we will project these on the board and we will go over these samples as part of our discussion at the beginning of class. So I suggest you pause, because I am going to continue with one more aspect of the video before I turn it off for today. So go ahead and pause, write down the 6 examples, and then I'll get started in a moment. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is this idea of parallelism. So parallelism is the idea that a component in a sentence that are grammatically the same. Grammatically meaning the idea that their word order is the same. They are similar in construction, in sound, meaning meter. Meter is something we'll focus more on next year, and meter is that beat that the author uses and the flow. Parallelism usually uses forms of the 5 that I just taught you: anaphora, antistrophe, asyndeton, polysyndeton, and chiasmus. So the idea that each sentence that uses these has a grammatical component that is the same, so the author is using a form of parallelism. So let's look at the first one here. She didn't speak, she didn't stand, she didn't even look up when she came in. You already saw this sample earlier when I did anaphora. So, and we have the same grammatical structure. We go pronoun, verb, pronoun, verb, pronoun, verb. So it follows that same structure. We even go pronoun, verb, pronoun, verb, verb, pronoun, verb, verb, pronoun, verb, and then the idea of the look here is another verb in there. So you're getting that same structure going on. The next one, we decided to travel to France, Germany, and Italy on our summer vacation. Now the idea here is that we don't need to do to France, to Germany, and to Italy, because the 2 actually pairs with each one, but we have to make sure that they are each singular, and we have to make sure that they are each locations. Because if we changed the sentence and said we decided to travel to France, and then we went to Germany, and then we went to this island somewhere over there on our summer vacation, it rambles on and becomes a run-on sentence, whereas this is very clear, it's very concise, and it's grammatically correct because of the fact that each of these are listed in the same manner. Okay, the next one, like father, like son. So you have this idea that both of them have an anaphora. They start with the like, so you have the verb and then you have the noun. So that fits in there because they're in the same structure itself. This next one, to err is human, to forgive divine. The idea here that we have a verb infinitive here fits with the idea of the is human and divine. Is human and divine is... So even though this, because the divine is missing an is, the idea here is that they still are the same in structure because the phrases start the same. Now, like I had you do with the previous slide and writing these down, I would like you to write down these parallelism problems in your notes as well, and that will be also part of our beginning discussion. So looking at these, write them in your notes and fix them. I would write the wrong way and then I would fix them so that you have them in both forms. And they are a little different in that, and then we will definitely look at this in class tomorrow. Again, the 5 forms here and then parallelism is what we focused on today. Tomorrow we will finish out syntax. Have a good day and see you tomorrow.